Is it too late to invest? Often, it's not too late for the people who are actually asking this question. And it is too late for those who don't think to ask. There are two separate aspects of too late to invest. Number one, I'm getting old. Is it too late to invest for me? And number two, hey, I found this hot investment trend or fad or whatever else. Is it too late to get into it? Is it too late to invest? We're going to look at investing in older age today, and next week we're going to look at investing in trends. And in both, we're going to ask the question, is it too late to invest? So for today, I'm getting old. Is it too late to invest? And I think there are two stages that people will ask this in. At least my experience, people will ask me professionally, hey, I'm getting towards this point. Is it too late? And those two stages are this. You're nearing retirement or you're nearing the end. That is, you're nearing the end of your life or you believe that you may be close to the end. So nearing retirement and nearing the end. Is it too late to invest? So let's look at the first one, right? I'm nearing retirement. Is it too late to invest? And what people will often say to me or ask me, or the message behind it is, isn't the stock market for younger people? Shouldn't we be investing when we were younger? All that compounding seems great for those who are in their 20s and 30s and have decades for this to work for them. Isn't it for younger people? Don't you need lots of time to recover from market losses? I don't know if I can afford to lose a bunch of money in the market. Isn't it more for younger people? Don't you need decades for this compounding to work? Do I still have time to invest for retirement, to invest in the market? And maybe that's you. Maybe you have some of those questions. You're getting closer to retirement and you're wondering, is it too late? I've heard you talk about investing in equities and having a plan and all these, but everything else I've heard says to get out of the market and to reduce market exposure as I get close to retirement. But a lot of things you're saying on this podcast seem to make it sound like it's really good. And I'm just wondering, is it too late for me? People close to retirement who believe it may be too late to invest suffer from one fatal error. They believe that retirement is the finish line. Let me say that again, that the people who are close to retirement who believe that it may be too late for them to invest suffer from a fatal flaw, which is they believe that retirement is the finish line. Retirement is not the finish line. It is mile marker 13.1 in a marathon. Retirement is not the finish line. It's the halfway mark. You spend the first half working and accumulating, and the second half living off of what you've accumulated. Are you planning to spend all of your money in the first year of your retirement? Are you expecting to die in year number 2? Of course not. You should expect and plan for a 3-decade retirement. The average couple who retires, most of them, like something like 80 to 90% of them, will have at least one person make it into their 90s, spanning 2, if not 3 decades. And so even though with all the jokes about, I'm going to die way before then, I'm going to die at 79, all these things, like you should still expect and plan for a 3-decade retirement. And during that time, the cost of everything you want and need to buy will double or triple. You still have a long way to go, and you will need and want the long-term growth of equities to rise to the challenge of inflation. You need to invest in equities as you're nearing retirement. You're only about halfway there. This is the fundamental concept in my book, 3D Retirement Income. And episode 50 discussed some of this, so you can go back and listen to that episode if you haven't. You can pick up a copy of the book on Amazon, or you can get one for free by becoming a Retire member at retirementorship.com. So let me be clear, right? If you are nearing retirement, it is not too late to invest. If you are nearing retirement, it is not too late to invest. In fact, you absolutely must invest in equities. You must invest in equities if you are nearing retirement. You still need that growth over 2 or 3 decades. And again, when I use the word equities, I mean, of course, high quality stock funds, funds consisting of the stock in the best businesses in the world, right? All through a plan, all those things. We've talked about that before, but if this is your first episode that you happen to be catching and you're like, what are you talking about equities? We mean the stock market, but we're really, again, taking that attitude of we are owners of the best businesses in the world, not stock traders. So if you are nearing retirement, it is not too late. You must invest. So that was your question, right? I'm nearing retirement. I'm wondering if it's too late. It is not. And you absolutely need a plan that includes equity investing as a heavy part of that as you go into the second half. The other question, though, that I get a lot of when people ask, is it too late to invest? Is that whole, I'm nearing the end. I'm at the end of my life, I think. Is it too late to invest? Those who are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, they realize that they were mistaken when they thought that they were old in their 50s and 60s. Because the general question is, I'm getting old. Is it too late? And really, when you're nearing then, you're like, oh man, I was not old before, but I feel it now. And while some think they are too old to invest because they are near retirement, others know that they are truly old when their life is reaching the final stage. Perhaps, you're not near retirement. You've been retired for a while, or you have parents that have been retired for a while. And if it's you, maybe you think you only have 15, 10, or maybe even less than 5 years left in your life. Of course, nobody knows, right? You don't know exactly how much time you have left, but you strongly suspect that you're coming toward the real finish line, the real ending point. Not retirement, right? We knew that wasn't the finish line. If you've lived many years past that, there's still a lot of life after that, but you are reaching perhaps what you think is the true end. Is it too late to invest then? The question generally has this fear behind it, right? What if I invest in the stock market and I lose all my money right at the end? I've gone my whole life building up a whole bunch of money and then not spending as much as maybe I wanted to help preserve it, and I still have a chunk here at the end. And what if I do invest and I go for all these benefits that you're talking about and I lose it all right at the end? And the stock market tanks and it's all gone. Perhaps I should instead keep it all in CDs and fixed income until the end, just to keep it safe. Well, let's look at 2 factors, right? Whether you still need the money for yourself and your spouse, and what would happen to your children's inheritance, because that's kind of the 2 questions. So let's say that we're talking about your needs in retirement, right? You think you have 15, 10, 5, something in there, years left in retirement, and we're wondering, should we invest? Is it too late to invest? I'm afraid of losing it when I still have a few more years of it, and I can't afford to lose a chunk of it, right? We're not talking about people who've got tons of money and can afford to lose a lot and they just don't want to. We're talking about you actually need it for your retirement needs. Well, if you are following the 3D retirement income model, then you should have a sufficient war chest of fixed income set aside for stock market downturns. It doesn't matter if there's a big stock market drop in the final years of your life. It doesn't matter. The model has you covered. Whether the market tanks 8 years before you pass, or 4 years before you pass, or right in the last year, right before you pass away, stock market tanks, you will still be able to maintain your income until the very end, until the very last paycheck is received. If you have the right plan, it doesn't matter if or when the stock market goes down. You're covered. You have a plan for that. It's not plan B. Plan A includes the inevitability that the stock market will go down while you're invested in it. All right, so you need to have the right plan, first of all. But again, and I will say this, I've said it a bunch of times before, and I will keep saying it because this needs to go deep down into your psyche, into your heart, into your mind. You need to believe this at the core, that the only way to turn a temporary decline into a permanent loss is to sell your equities when they're down. right? The only way to turn a temporary decline into a permanent loss is to sell your equities when they are down. And we do not do that here. We do not do that here. We have a sufficient pool of fixed income to protect our income during stock market downturns. We don't need to pull the money out during a downturn, so we won't, and we will leave it in there until it recovers. The right plan will meet your retirement needs all the way until the end, and thus it is never too late to invest in equities if you are following a plan. We generally don't know if we have 8, 4, or 1 year left in our life. And thank the Lord, right? I don't know that any of us would actually appreciate knowing the exact time we were going to die and having that clock ticking down at all times. So in some ways, we're glad that we don't know, right? And you may believe you only have a couple of years left, but then you might continue on for 5 or more, right? We don't really know. But during that time, you are still going to want and need the growth of equities. And so we will want that growth. Costs will still go up in the next few years. We want our money to grow with it, to grow faster, to rise faster than the cost of living. And the equities are still the best way to do that. But what about my children's inheritance, right? Maybe you're saying, well, I'm not so concerned about me. That all makes sense. I've read 3D Retirement Income, or maybe even a client, but this has always kind of been in the back of your mind. And again, we don't have hours and hours to talk together in the office like I can talk to you via podcast. So maybe one of your questions has always been, what about my children's inheritance? Perhaps you're unsure if you should invest in equities because you don't want to lose all that money you've built and that you wanted to give away. Right? Many folks have aspirations of blessing their children and grandchildren, churches and charities, and they want to give away a lot of what they've built in the end, right? I'm going to hold on to it. And this is what we teach people a lot, right? Like to give a lot while you're alive, right? To enjoy it. That's the 4th dimension. It's the last chapter, in the last chapter of the book. I think we did a podcast on it too. And so you want to give and enjoy it, but you don't want to give too much away while you are alive and thus jeopardize your ability to take care of yourself, right? You can leave a chunk in there, live off the growth of that chunk, and then give it away at the end. But if you give it away too fast, too early, then you can no longer support yourself, and you'll end up giving less over your lifetime than if you do it. So there's some planning and some smart ways to do that. But if you have this aspiration to bless your church or some charities or to leave a bunch to your kids and grandkids, what happens if the market drops by 40% right before you die, right? And all that giving that you wanted to do gets cut in half. Well, again, the only way to turn a temporary decline into a permanent loss is to sell your equities when they're down. And that doesn't apply just to you, but also to your beneficiaries. Your children will only lose 40% of their inheritance if they liquidate at your death when it's down, right? Your churches and charities will only lose 40% of what you intended to give them if they sell it all while it's down. Because you see, and maybe we just aren't fully aware of this, but when you and your spouse pass away, your retirement accounts can be transferred into inherited IRAs, right? And inherited Roth IRAs. And the equity funds in your retirement accounts can pass directly to these inherited accounts without being sold. Right? It doesn't sell everything you have to cash and then transfer it. You can transfer it directly. And similarly, any non-retirement funds that you have can be passed directly to any person or any entity, any charity, right? You can pass those funds directly intact. You don't need to sell them. Investments do not need to be sold when you pass away, unless there's some, other extenuating circumstances, some law or some, something specific to your situation that requires things to be sold. They don't need to be. You can pass inheritances and gifts to people without selling. If the market dropped by 40% and you passed away at the bottom, right, the worst possible time you've passed away, your children or whomever else you've chosen as your beneficiary, they will get the accounts while the value is 40% down. Right, that's true. They will pass to your kids. They will pass from your IRA to your inherited IRA, from your brokerage account to their brokerage account. while the value is down 40%. But they only lose that 40% if they sell, if they liquidate. You only lose money when you sell at a loss. And if they simply hold on to the funds until they recover and then sell them later, they will not experience the loss. Right? The decline is always temporary. The ascent is always permanent. And when history repeats itself, the funds will recover. All your funds will recover and they will be able to get the full value. Plus, so far historically, every time there's been a big loss, there's been a recovery, and then it's gone on rapidly to achieve new heights. Right? It doesn't just get back to where it was and then middle along. So far, it has always gone up to much higher heights. And so not only can they still get the full value by just waiting for the recovery to happen within a year or two, they can get even more if they hold on to it longer. Right? And plus, if you're following the 3D retirement income model, you should also have some fixed income that has not plummeted by 40%. Right? You should have equities, mostly equities with a sufficient pool of fixed income. And if you happen to pass away at the bottom, and if your children and charities need some of that inheritance or gifting immediately, they will be able to withdraw without suffering the high loss. Right? They can take that from the fixed income. They can wait then until the rest recovers without absorbing the full loss. So as long as they have some flexibility, there's no problem there. So it's not too late, even if you're towards the end, to invest in equity. And for all you know, even if you only have 4, 5, 6, 7 years left, your portfolio could double. The stock market could double between now and when you pass, which would be great because then you are double blessing your children and grandchildren, churches and charities. And if it goes down, it's okay because they will not suffer the loss if they're wise with what you've given them. So to sum it all up, it is never too late to invest according to a plan in a diversified portfolio of equities with a sufficient pool of fixed income. It's never too late. And indeed, if you have not done so yet, please do with all haste.
If you enjoyed that, you would love being part of our free membership community. It's called Retire Membership, and it has a host of benefits all for free. For example, you can always buy my book, 3D Retirement Income, on Amazon. But if you join us at Retire Membership, we will send you either a hard copy or paperback for free, provide the ebook and the audiobook so that you can listen to it if you don't have time to read it. In addition to that, we'll also provide you with a bunch of content that you can't get anywhere else. For example, we have our quarterly Retire Mentorship magazine, which comes out quarterly and has no ads whatsoever. It's just timely content to help you stay the course. We also have workbooks for our free online workshop to help you get the most out of those, flowcharts to help you make better decisions, and a weekly email to provide timely content that you can unsubscribe from at any time. We never ask for any payment information, and we never share your information with anyone else. We just want to provide timely content and help you stay the course to retire successfully and stay successfully retired. There's no reason to wait, so join us now at retiremembership.com, where you can click in the link in the description and it'll go right there. We can't wait to see you in the community. Cheers. This podcast is educational only and is not investment, tax, or legal advice.